Hi everybody, Mrs. Mancuso here. I am explaining the questions from week 7, so practice AP Bio questions. So this one says, Daphnia is a freshwater crustacean that can detect chemical cues produced by the predator NG. Researchers raised Daphnia clones and observed that those exposed to N chemical cues during their development produced larger protective crests, as described in figures 1 and 2. Crest height and width are measured as ratios to body length. The increase in the size of the crest, width, and height is not associated with a corresponding change to the genome. Researchers hypothesize that growing a crest is energetically costly, so Daphnia do not develop the large crests in the absence of N. Okay, so let's look at these crests. So here it is. So if you're exposed to N, then you will build this big crest around it. Whereas if there is no N present, you are going to keep this normal, very small crest because it would take a lot of energy, it said, to build that one. So you only build this when it's exposed to N, and N comes from the predators. All right, so that makes sense. And you guys know that I like to abbreviate things. So I'm calling the chemical N. When I write it in an actual answer on an exam, I would write out the word. But I think it's just easier to look at the questions and give yourself little abbreviations for it. So describe the factors that influence an individual's phenotype. So phenotype is how you express your traits. The expression of your traits is your phenotype. So what are the factors that influence it? Well, first of all, your genes, which is the order of the bases in your DNA, that is going to determine your, well, it is your genotype and it can determine what your phenotype is. But in this one, it shows that there's also environmental factors. So the environmental factors, like the presence of that chemical, can decide if a gene is expressed or not. All right, explain how the presence of the N chemical cues affects gene expression in the Daphnia. So the presence of N, again, I would write out that whole thing, that increases the gene expression for crest width and height. Okay, so it enhanced the expression, or it increased the expression of the crest height. Next one. Provide reasoning to justify your prediction. Oops, I think I skipped one. I definitely skipped one. It looks like it got cut. So C, I'll just have to make an extra spot here. C says, what will happen if the next generation has no predators? So if there's no predators present, then there's going to be no N, which means the expression of the gene is not enhanced. So I would imagine the crest, width, and the height would be like the original, not like the parents. It is going, so if I go back to this question, all right, so the crest is going to be like this if there's no N present. Now, the explanation has to say that the parents had larger crest width and height due to the presence of N increasing expression of the gene, but the genome doesn't change So the offspring aren't large like the parents with no N present. So they both have the same exact genome. The difference is if the chemical is present or not. So when the chemical was present for the parents, it made them enlarge their crests, but it wasn't present for the offspring. So they would have normal sizing. All right, that's the end of question 2.